past that, Inside Medicine is going to go right to Mr. Charlie Giroux. He is a JD from the Villanova University of Law and a Pennsylvania attorney for over 40 years. Giroux began his career on the campaign staff of President Ronald Reagan and continued to do political work for Reagan through the next 25 years. Giroux is a prominent Republican Party political strategist. In 2010, Politics Medicine named him one of the most influential Republicans in Pennsylvania. Attorney Giroux, welcome to Inside Medicine.
Well, good morning. I'm not exactly a prominent medical expert, as your teaser said, but I'm delighted to be on the air with you. And thank God I am a recovering lawyer. I keep my license to practice law, but I haven't practiced in well over 20 years. I run a small business, and I'm very proud of the fact that I'm earning an honest living.
Well, that's fantastic, because the one thing that's kind of got us going is this deal with Governor Murphy of New Jersey. He basically reintroduced, medication where patients can call into the office and get telehealth services, which have really helped our seniors, many people. And Governor Murphy was holding, but then finally decided in New Jersey on 12/22 to okay telemedicine for another 2 years or as long as the pandemic lasts. And we have really tried to get, good health for our patients, and we're just curious, how you feel about telemedicine and any other items that you want to talk about, because Pennsylvania is more than just telemedicine, but it's very important for the people of Pennsylvania.
And I agree. I think telemedicine is, the wave of the future, and it really combines technology with best practices, and as you correctly point out, is a special advantage to our senior citizens and older Pennsylvanians or older Americans. So I'm very supportive of it. But, there's an awful lot that we've been talking about with respect to medicine and this pandemic, and bluntly, Pennsylvania blew it. The lockdowns and shutdowns and mandatory actions that Governor Wolf took, most of which were arbitrary and capricious, simply didn't work. And in fact, what happened was exactly the opposite. We found ourselves, locked in our homes, our kids kept out of school, our businesses shuttered, and now we're going to have to pay the price for that. And a lot of that has to do with rebuilding our economy, because literally a third of our small businesses, and they are the backbone of our economy, the great creator of jobs, aren't coming back. So we've got to figure out a way to get Pennsylvania's economy jump-started again, rolling at full speed so that there's prosperity for all. And that's what my campaign's really all about.
I love that phrase, prosperity for all. Basically, you cover the state, but where would you indicate that you want to push that prosperity for all? What besides telehealth, which is very important to the people's health, and of course, the happier your guest, the more happy things go. So, but just give us a little input here. What other items you want to touch on?
Well, I think our economy is going to be rebuilt on three-legged stools. And the three pillars of the future economy are, one, low taxes, because if you tax something, you get less of it. And Pennsylvania is a very high-tax state, as you know. And as a result, folks flee. They go to Arizona, they go to Texas, they go to Florida, they go to South Carolina. We have to be attracting jobs, keeping our young people here, and building a successful economy. You do that with lower taxes, not higher taxes. Second, you do it with a regulatory system that isn't punitive and one that doesn't take forever in order to get through the permitting process, because those delays are another form of tax. They cost money, and those costs are ultimately passed on to consumers. We all pay the price. The taxes get passed on to us, so do the costs that come from the delays in the permitting process. And the third thing that I think is necessary to really build a strong economy in Pennsylvania is something that very few people talk about in terms of the economy, and that is public corruption. Because folks aren't going to come here or choose to expand here if they think it's a pay-for-play environment. If you believe that every time you want a permit or every time you want something done, some palm has to get greased, you're going to go someplace where that isn't the case. And we've had endemic public corruption in Pennsylvania. We've got to clean it up. We've got to put an end to it. And your hosting this broadcast from Philadelphia. You've seen an awful lot of it in the city of brotherly love recently. I grew up in the Philadelphia area, know it well, and realize we've really got to do something about public corruption.
Yeah, I'm very
Charlie,
curious. Yeah, here's George Petrunzio's on. George, fire away.
Yeah, Charlie, just a humorous note is that I don't know if you want to accept people coming from New Jersey because they'll probably export it and bring it in a worse form to Pennsylvania if they're coming from New Jersey. So
we all have our crosses to bear, Doctor.
I know. Well, we got plenty over here. Okay, pay for play is almost like an edict. Okay, in North Jersey and throughout the state, but there's been some major changes. I won't get into it in New Jersey, but I can fully appreciate your goals, and they're admirable. You're an ethical person. I've known you for a long time. I endorse you 110%, as you know that. I've known you for a good 20 years from that standpoint, and I wish you the best. I know you're a supporter of telemedicine for those people throughout the entire state who can't get to a doctor in, say, middle of a snowstorm or bad weather, or they have to drive 6 hours or 8 hours. They can get a consult from an expert from Penn, Temple, et cetera, the hospitals in Pitt, Hershey. I can go on. But then that way it's saving them time and making it they can get the consult from the convenience of their own home. Hopefully that will take place, and get passed in Pennsylvania, because it's going to save lives. In other words, people won't have to be on the road. They won't have to be driving in the middle of a snowstorm. And I think you're a great friend of medicine from that standpoint over the years. So I'll let you.
Before you came on, Dr. Petrunzio, we spoke about that very briefly, and I said many of the things that you just said. And I said, bluntly, the key to me is that it combines modern technology and advancing technology with good practices, and that's good for everybody, and particularly for our senior citizens who do have trouble from time to time getting out and getting to medical care.
Yeah, it's a reassurance for the seniors that can get on their phone or their computer if they have one, and it's very, very calming effect because of the fact they can get, the latest and greatest medicine from telemedicine, which, is going to benefit the Pennsylvanians. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Charlie. All right.
Charlie, can I ask you a question? Joe Fallon. The news last night is just loaded with shootings in the city of Philadelphia. I'm just curious, what is your position on police, which seem to have been pushed to the side lately?
Well, you hit the nail on the head there, Joe. The problem is that police have been pushed to the side. We haven't supported that thin blue line that protects all of us. And I can tell you that in an administration run by me, a Giroux administration, police will be respected, they'll be supported, they'll be defended, because without our police, public safety goes down the drain. And you've seen it in Philadelphia. It's sad, and it's beyond sad. It's tragic. And you've got a district attorney there, one of these George Soros-sponsored DAs, who doesn't want to prosecute crimes. And as a result, you've got a rapid increase in violent crime in the city of Philadelphia, while at the same time he's telling us, there's no real problem here. I mean, it's preposterous, but it's really much more than that. As I said, it's tragic. And as governor, there isn't as much that can be done out of the governor's office as you might hope, but I will use every ounce available to me, and in particular, the bully pulpit of the governor's office, to say, we stand with our police, we support them, we want public safety, and we know that our police are the front line of providing that public safety.
Fantastic. Now, what about jobs? Because everybody's always interested in jobs. The economy seems to be coming around, but there's a lot of people who just don't want to work. A lot of handouts have been given. Of course, that's me saying that, not you. So I'm just curious what your position is going to be on jobs for the people of Pennsylvania.
Well, the sad part is that through this magical money that Washington is sending around, we've created a situation where the difference between working and not working isn't worth working for. And that is really a tragedy as well. There is great honor in work. There is great joy in work. And the opportunities that come with a job are what America and Pennsylvania has to be about. So as governor, I will be a job creator. That is what I've done in the private sector. As I say, I run a small business, but we've created hundreds of jobs there. And so, no, not hundreds, we've created over 100 jobs there. It's a small company. But creating jobs requires, as I say, a low tax system, one that isn't punitive. It requires a regulatory system that makes sense, and it requires getting rid of public corruption. Let me give you one example. Our business taxes in Pennsylvania are among the highest in the country. Sometimes they are the highest. Even Tom Wolf says our business taxes are too high. We have a Republican legislature which will say every day that they're too high. But what's been done? And the answer is nothing. So as governor, I'll put my shoulder to the wheel and we'll get things done. We'll stop talking and we'll make sure that what we've said ought to be the case becomes reality.
Now, I have to ask
Charlie,
you that great line. Put your shoulder to the wheel. Can you just explain that for me? Because I like it, but I just like to hear your explanation. Shoulder to the wheel.
Well, I think a governor has to roll up his sleeves, get his hands dirty, which I've done all my life, and get things done. I mean, it can't be a laissez-faire administration. It can't be a governor that sits in Philadelphia when things are going on in Harrisburg. It can't be somebody who's not taking an active role in standing up for the people of Pennsylvania and making sure that their lives are made a little bit better every single day.
All right, let's get this guy moving. Shoulder to the wheel. I like it. George.
Charlie, okay, one of the things that I mentioned is that Philadelphia, the Northeast region, was one of the biggest manufacturers in the country, in the last century, and that kind of evaporated. So I can't support you enough as far as manufacturing, creating jobs, hard jobs that will make things come back to Pennsylvania. And it'll raise the self-esteem from people when they're having a job and producing and manufacturing something. The other thing I wanted to ask you about is there's about the police work, and the police law had to do, with a situation with the no-run law. It was introduced by, I believe, a representative from the Hazleton region about having a law when a police officer goes and asks you information at the scene of a situation, that they were going to make it illegal to run from a police officer when he requests you for information. Could you have any comments on that law that's pending?
Yeah, I'd want to take a look at the specifics of it, Doctor, but it makes good sense on its face. It certainly does. Now, we do have protections against people being questioned unreasonably, et cetera, in this country. And so I'd want to take a look at the specifics and the particulars of that legislation. But as a matter of first impression, sounds like a good idea.
Thank you.
So Charles Giroux, you sound like a fantastic speaker. You sound like a guy with a plan. Is there anything else that you would like to say to the people of Pennsylvania to make sure they know what you are all about?
Well, I thank you for the opportunity, Joe. And yeah, there are a couple of things. First of all, the spelling of my last name is a little difficult. People hear Giroux and they think, well, maybe it's like Claude Giroux of the Flyers. Pretty close, but it's G-E-R-O-W. They anglicized it a number of years back. There's not a drop of French blood in me. As Dr. Patrizio knows, I'm adopted. I was raised in Pennsylvania, went to elementary school, high school, college, law school here. I've never really left Pennsylvania since I arrived. But I was born in a slum in southern Brazil and adopted by American missionaries, brought to Pennsylvania, and have been blessed to be raised here. My birth mother realized she couldn't take care of me, and her only request when she put me up for adoption was that I be adopted by Americans, because she believed that if I came to America, the greatest country in the history of the world, that I might be able to learn how to read. So that's my story in a nutshell. Pennsylvania to the core, but with a French last name that's spelled G-E-R-O-W. And my website, where I'd love people to go and get involved if they like what they heard today, is Charlie4, F-O-R, not the number, but Charlie4Governor.com, Charlie4Governor.com. And I want to leave one other thing with your listeners this morning. On New Year's Day, while I wish everyone a happy, healthy, and prosperous New Year, and that's my cell number, my personal cell number, because I think it's really important that any candidate for the office of governor of Pennsylvania listen to people. And the only way I can listen is if people call me. So this is my personal cell. It's in my back pocket. I'll answer it personally. And it's 717-877-8194. 717-877-8194. And it's Charlie Giroux, Gerow. And I am blessed to be on the air with you this morning. I thank you for the opportunity. I wish both of you a great 2022. And say hello to your next guest, because Sam Marshall was a classmate of mine once upon a time.
Fantastic.
From humble beginnings, to a full law degree, Charlie, did not know that history. I am very impressed. All right.
There's
a lot of people didn't, Dr. Petrenzo, and I'll tell you a real quick story if you've got 10 seconds here. I don't usually tell that story, and that's why a lot of my friends, including people like Dr. Petrenzo, who have known me for over 20 years, weren't aware of that, because it's just not something you talk about every day. But I told that story for the first time in public when I announced my candidacy for governor. And, of course, some hotshot young reporter came running up to me afterwards and demanded to know, why were you born in Brazil? So, think about that for a minute. And I said, well, I wanted to be close to my mother. So that's the way we'll handle the median.
Are there any other highlights? Yeah. Are there any other highlights of your campaign that you want to stress and talk about, Charlie? Giroux?
We've got a lot. I mean, my personal story, as you know, goes from my service with Ronald Reagan, for whom I did work on and off for 25 years, including the arrangements for his funeral, and my current position as vice chairman of CPAC. I think a lot of your listeners will know CPAC, the Conservative Political Action Conference, which is held each year, the largest gathering of conservatives in the world, whose stage has been graced by President Trump every year he was in office and since, and others of the conservative movement across the country. And I've been very, very proud of my service there, and they've fully endorsed my candidacy. But, ours is a people campaign. The motto of our campaign is from the people, for the people. And I'm reaching out to every corner of Pennsylvania, every corner of the Commonwealth, and going to every wake and wedding and just chatting with people every single day. We're doing more events in one day than a lot of candidates are in a week. And I'm very proud of that. I think that it's required that you do that. We've taken on Josh Shapiro from day one, because I believe that if we had 4 years of Josh Shapiro, we'd all be looking back at the Wolf administration as the good old days. So I called upon Josh Shapiro the day that he announced his candidacy to resign as Attorney General. I don't see how you can possibly run a statewide campaign for governor while serving in public office and taking a check from the taxpayers. I took a leave of absence from my little tiny business, and it's much, much smaller than the office of Attorney General and with much less demanding responsibility. So he really ought to resign. He ought to be honest with the people of Pennsylvania and say, I didn't really want this job, because the minute that my hand was taken off the Bible from being sworn in, I was running for governor. So, he ought to resign. He ought to let somebody that cares about that office take over. And I'm calling on all the other Republicans to demand of Josh Shapiro that he resign.
And you support the working man, which is one of the things that I really admire about you, Charlie, that a lot of my friends and colleagues in Pennsylvania are all hardworking individuals, be it farmers, be it workers at the factory. We need to get Pennsylvania back and working and people back to work. The other thing I wanted to ask you about, and if you want to comment about it, about the midnight flights being brought into Wilkes-Barre at 2 o'clock in the morning with the illegal immigrants that are being dropped into Wilkes-Barre, that they're not being checked for infectious diseases or COVID, and they're dropping them in, and sometimes under the number of 49, so they're not reported. Could you make a comment on that?
Yeah, to the extent that all that's going on, George, Dr. Petrenzo, it's a disgrace. I'm a legal immigrant to the United States, so I probably more than anybody that is a natural-born citizen of the U.S. feels very, very strongly about those who came here legally versus those that are coming here illegally. And to be doing what's going on right now is a national disgrace. I'll just leave it at that.
Well, don't you think the governor, Wolf, the current governor, should be, objecting or commenting on this about bringing these people in?
Absolutely. He ought to be rounding them up, packing them up as Governor DeSantis did in Florida and sending them down to Delaware, Joe Biden's home state. That might be a good solution.
Right. And my concern is from a medical standpoint, these people are not being cleared for, infectious diseases. And as we have this Omicron epidemic just ripping through as a wildfire through the whole country, they're adding fuel to the fire by bringing in people who have not been even tested, let alone vaccinated. So
we've got all these mandates on working men and women in America, and yet we've got nothing for illegals coming across the border at night. It's as I say, it's a national disgrace. The Biden lack of policy with respect to our southern border is, it's a travesty. There's just no other way to put it. They've basically done everything wrong.
Yeah, my friend told me that the airport reported it at 2 a.m. And how they're getting away from reporting it is they're only bringing in 49 people on a jet in the middle of the night versus over 50. So it's not reportable. So that's something else that I'm sure all the people at the airports, 2 o'clock in the morning, hopefully you'll give us a call and we'll be there, to have the TV news camera crews covering this of people possibly being fomites. And fomites are articles or items that can infect other people. So before we have a bunch of fomites coming into the country, I think we have to test them at the border and make sure that they're healthy, as they did in Ellis Island. Just as you did, you were a legal immigrant and you came in the right way. Just as many ancestors in Pennsylvania, where their forefathers came through the proper way and went through and had health physicals and came in legally, they're more than welcome to come in legally. But the other way, I can't agree with you more. So I think I can assume your position on that.
And I always go back, Doctor, to Father Theodore Hesburgh's famous quote, where he said we have to slam the back door of illegal immigration shut so that we can keep the front door of legal immigration open.
Well stated.
Mm-hmm. Well stated.
Fantastic.
Yep.
So, Attorney Giroux, we wish you future governor of Pennsylvania. I love how you speak. I love your ideas, and especially the one about sending those to Delaware. So hopefully the president will give you a personal call of thanks.
Yeah. Charlie, before you go, Charlie, I want you to tell us your website for contributions for Charlie Giroux for governor. How do we make contributions, or can we do that?
You sure can, and I would welcome them, Doctor. Thank you for the opportunity to give the website out again. It's Charlie for Governor, F-O-R, charlieforgovernor.com, charlieforgovernor.com, and we'd love to hear from all of your listeners. If they can contribute, that's great, but even if they just want to sign up for more information or hear more about what we're doing in the campaign or my views on particular issues, we'd love to hear from people. And as I did before, I gave out my personal cell number. I'll do it again. It's 717-877-8194, and I would welcome a call from any of your listeners.
And I want to mention that you're a great supporter of medicine and all the doctors of Pennsylvania. So all of you doctors, if you're listening out there, Charlie Giroux is your person who's going to support medicine and have us doing the telemedicine so we can take good care of the patients no matter where they are, and we can take good care of the seniors.
Thank you, Doctor, and thank you both, Joe and George. It's been great to be on with you. And as I say, I hope everybody has a truly blessed and happy and healthy 2022.
Sold.